My parents gave my entire inheritance to my sister and expected me to smile about it, so I waited until her wedding day and told everyone the real reason why. I always knew my sister was the favorite, the pretty one, the charming one, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, but I never thought they'd actually steal from me to give her more. When my grandmother passed away and left me money specifically in her will, my parents handed every single dollar to my sister instead. They thought I'd never find out. They were wrong, and what I did at her perfect wedding changed our family forever. My sister Ashley and I are 3 years apart. She's younger, and from the day she was born, she's been the golden child. I'm not exaggerating. Every family has a favorite, but with my parents, it was so obvious it hurt. Ashley got the bigger room. Ashley got the new clothes, while I wore hand-me-downs from cousins. Ashley got piano lessons and dance classes, while I was told we couldn't afford activities for both of us. I learned early on to just accept it, to not make waves, to be the quiet, responsible daughter who didn't need attention. My parents rewarded that behavior by giving me even less attention. It was a cycle I couldn't break. When I turned 18, I moved out for college. I worked part-time, took out loans, and barely scraped by. My parents helped Ashley with her college tuition when she started 2 years later. They said it was because she got into a better school, that she had more potential. I tried not to let it bother me. I was used to it by then. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was the only person who ever treated us equally. She loved both of us the same. She'd take us on trips, buy us gifts, spend time with us individually. She told me once that she saw how my parents treated me, and it broke her heart. She said I deserved better. I cried when she said that because nobody had ever acknowledged it before. When my grandmother got sick, I was the one who took care of her. I'd drive 2 hours every weekend to help her with groceries, cleaning, doctor appointments. Ashley visited maybe twice in 6 months. My parents visited once a month if that, but I was there every single weekend for a year until she passed away. Before she died, my grandmother told me she'd left me something in her will. She said she wanted to make sure I was taken care of, that I'd worked so hard and deserved to have a cushion. She didn't tell me how much, just that it was enough to make a real difference in my life. She passed away on a Tuesday. The funeral was small and sad. I was devastated. She was the only family member who really loved me unconditionally. 2 weeks after the funeral, my parents called a family meeting. They said they needed to discuss the will. I drove to their house thinking we'd go over the details together. Ashley was already there, sitting on the couch looking smug. My dad pulled out the will documents. He said my grandmother had left the house to him, which was expected. Then he said she'd left some money to be split between Ashley and me. He said it was $20,000 each. I was shocked. $20,000 was life-changing money for me. I could pay off a chunk of my student loans, maybe put a down payment on a small house. I started crying thinking about how generous my grandmother had been. Then my mom said they'd made a decision. Ashley was getting engaged soon and needed money for a wedding. They decided to give her my portion to help with wedding costs. They said I'd understand, that I wasn't getting married anytime soon, so I didn't need it as urgently. I stared at them. I asked if they were serious. My dad said family helps family, that Ashley's wedding was important, and I should be happy to contribute. I said I didn't agree to contribute anything. That was my inheritance from my grandmother, who left it to me specifically. My mom said my grandmother would want me to help my sister, that she'd understand. I said if my grandmother wanted Ashley to have more money, she would have left it to her. The will was clear. Ashley finally spoke up. She said I was being selfish, that I always made everything about me, that I couldn't just be happy for her for once. My parents nodded in agreement. I left without another word. I was shaking. I was so angry, but I didn't know what to do. The money was being held by my parents as executors of the will. I didn't have access to it, and they'd already made their decision. Over the next few weeks, I tried to reason with them. I called my dad and explained calmly that I needed that money, that I had debt and expenses and plans for my future. He said Ashley's wedding was a priority, that once it was over, maybe they'd consider helping me out separately. I asked when. He said they'd see. He hung up before I could respond. My mom texted me saying I was causing unnecessary drama, that I needed to let this go and be supportive of my sister. I didn't respond. Ashley called me drunk one night and told me I was ruining her engagement with my negativity. She said I'd always been jealous of her, and this proved it. She said if I couldn't be happy for her, I shouldn't come to the wedding. I told her I wouldn't, but she had been lying about this for years. Well, not exactly years, but she'd been manipulating our parents for years to get whatever she wanted. And this was just another example. Another time, I was expected to sacrifice so she could have more. I tried to move on. I threw myself into work, avoided family calls, blocked Ashley on social media, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That money was mine. My grandmother wanted me to have it, and my parents stole it from me to fund a wedding for their favorite daughter. Then, about 2 months after the initial conversation, I got a call from my aunt, my dad's sister. She asked if I'd gotten my inheritance yet. I told her what happened. She went silent. Then she said something that changed everything. She said my grandmother's will specifically stated that I was to receive $50,000, not 20, 50, and Ashley was supposed to get 10,000. I asked how she knew that. She said she was there when my grandmother made the will. She'd witnessed it. My grandmother had left me more because she knew I needed it more, because she knew I'd been overlooked my entire life. My parents had lied. They hadn't split $20,000 each. They'd taken my $50,000 and given it all to Ashley, and they'd lied about the amounts, so I wouldn't know. I had no idea the full extent of their betrayal. They hadn't just given my sister my inheritance. They'd stolen it and covered it up with a fake story. They'd looked me in the eyes and lied. I asked my aunt to send me proof. She did. She had a copy of the original will. Clear as day. 50,000 to me, 10,000 to Ashley. The rest split between other family members and charities. I contacted a lawyer, explained the situation. She said I had a case, that as executor, my parents had a legal obligation to distribute assets according to the will. If they'd falsified information or redistributed against the deceased's wishes, that was theft. I could sue them, but I didn't want to sue them. I wanted something else. I wanted them to face what they'd done in front of everyone. I wanted Ashley to know her perfect wedding was funded by stolen money. I wanted my family to see the truth. So, I started planning. Ashley's wedding was set for a Saturday in June. Outdoor ceremony, fancy reception, 200 guests. My parents had spared no expense. Every detail was perfect, all funded by my inheritance. I hadn't been formally uninvited, just told I probably shouldn't come if I was going to be negative. But I showed up anyway, wore a nice dress, brought a gift, acted like everything was fine. My parents looked shocked to see me. My mom tried to pull me aside, but I said I just wanted to support my sister. She looked relieved, thought I'd finally let it go. The ceremony was beautiful. Ashley looked gorgeous. Her fiancé seemed nice enough. Everyone was smiling and taking photos. It was the perfect wedding, everything she'd dreamed of. During the reception, there was a scheduled time for toasts. The best man went first, then the maid of honor. Then my dad stood up to give the father of the bride speech. He talked about how proud he was of Ashley, how she'd grown into such an amazing woman, how he and my mom were so happy to help make her dreams come true. He talked about how proud he was of Ashley, how she'd grown into such an amazing woman, how he and my mom were so happy to help make her dreams come true. When he finished, I stood up. People looked confused. I wasn't on the toast list. My mom tried to wave me down, but I walked to the front with my glass raised. I said I wanted to add something, that I had a few words to share about my sister and this beautiful wedding. Ashley looked nervous but didn't stop me. I started by saying Ashley had always been the favorite, that everyone in the family knew it, but nobody talked about it. A few people laughed uncomfortably. I said I'd accepted that a long time ago, that I didn't expect equal treatment anymore. Then I said this wedding was extra special because it was funded by our grandmother's inheritance, that our grandmother had been so generous to leave money for Ashley's future. People nodded. My parents looked relieved. They thought I was being nice. Then I said it was interesting how much my grandmother had loved both of us equally, but had chosen to leave me significantly more money because she knew I needed it more. The room got quiet. I pulled out my phone and held up the copy of the will my aunt had sent me. I read it out loud. $50,000 to me, $10,000 to Ashley. I said it was sweet that my parents had decided to redistribute those amounts without telling anyone, that they'd taken $40,000 from my inheritance and given it to Ashley, that they'd lied about the amounts and told me I was being selfish for wanting what was legally mine. When I showed them the evidence, everything changed. People started whispering. Ashley's face went pale. My dad stood up and tried to speak, but I kept going. I said, every flower arrangement, every centerpiece, every plate of food at this reception was paid for with stolen money. Money my grandmother specifically left to me. Money I was supposed to use for my future. And I just thought everyone should know that as they celebrated. Then I put my phone away, picked up my purse, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. People yelling, Ashley crying, my mom screaming at my dad. But I didn't look back. I just left. My phone blew up within an hour. Texts from family members demanding to know if it was true. Calls from my parents yelling at me for ruining the wedding. Messages from cousins saying they always suspected something was off. Ashley sent me a long message calling me every name she could think of. I blocked all of them and went home. I felt lighter than I had in months. I'd told the truth. Finally, after years of being silent and accepting less, I'd stood up for myself. My lawyer contacted my parents the following week, told them they had two options: return my $50,000 plus interest and legal fees, or face a lawsuit for theft and breach of fiduciary duty. They chose to pay. I got my money 3 weeks later, every cent, plus an extra $5,000 for legal fees, and the interest I would have earned if they'd given it to me on time. Ashley and her new husband had to pay my parents back for the wedding costs since it turned out to be stolen money. I heard they're still paying it off. My relationship with my parents is over. We don't speak. They sent one email apologizing and saying they thought they were doing the right thing by helping Ashley. I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say. Ashley tried to reach out a few months later, said she didn't know the full story about the will, that my parents had told her it was being split evenly. I don't know if I believe her, but either way, she took money that wasn't hers and didn't question it. So I don't feel bad about what happened. The rest of my family has been split. Some people think I was justified. Others think I should have handled it privately instead of at the wedding. I don't really care what they think anymore. I spent my whole life caring what they thought, and it got me nothing but pain. I used my inheritance exactly how my grandmother intended. I paid off my student loans. I put a down payment on a small house. I started a savings account. I'm building the stable, secure life she wanted me to have. And every time I look around my house or check my bank account, I think of her. Not my parents, not Ashley, just her. What I learned from all this is that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most will hurt you the deepest. And sometimes the only way to stop that hurt is to expose it, to drag it into the light where everyone can see it. Is it messy? Yes. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But it's also honest. And after years of living with lies, honesty felt like freedom. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. My grandmother left me that money because she saw me, really saw me, and I honored her by making sure the truth came out. That's worth more than any relationship with people who never valued me anyway.